turn it off until we need it. There we go.
The minute you turn it on, it's not recording.
Yeah, we're live. Okay. So, hi everyone. Hi to everyone that's with us so far. We are just waiting for everyone to arrive. There seems to be a few people arriving so far. Obviously, Kellie J. Keane, not just yet. If you just give me 2 seconds and we will go over. Okay, so just pre-warning to everyone, if people could start letting us know in the chat if the audio is okay and everything. We've had a little issue with the mic, so we're having to use the internal microphone, on the iPhone. But hopefully you guys can hear me all right. If you can't, just let me know. Same with signal or anything like that. If it cuts out, let me know in the chat. And yeah, let's go over. Kellie J. Keane is here. She looks fabulous, doesn't she? No idea.
Hello.
Can you just tell me if it's coming out of there?
Testing. Hello. Hello. Hello.
No.
Hello.
Coming through this one, but I don't coming through that one.
This one.
So while everything's getting set up, I think we should probably do a couple of interviews, get everything going. So yeah, I mean,
That definitely works.
Is it on you then? Is it there as well? Right, okay.
Good.
we're going to get started, I think.
Oh, hello.
I was just wondering if there's any point, what would be the best time to have you for a quick interview, if possible?
Oh, probably after, or when someone's. I want to hear the speeches. After.
I'd literally just do 5 minutes of your
What's
time.
the time
that's
now? Sorry, Tara, to ask. Anyone?
12:44.
Oh, as soon as I've set up my camera, I can give you sort of a couple of minutes then. Is that
Brilliant.
all right?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
And you're with who?
Resistance Judy.
Okay.
Yeah, right, we'll get a couple of interviews on.
I have forgotten because I've seen it. It's the seven deadly sins. Well, it's like from when I was at the bottom without the glasses.
Okay, so we'll start getting interviews. Do you want to turn the GoPro on?
I'm trying to work it.
So just switch it on there. That should be going. Red lights blinking. Yeah, all good? Okay. Right, should we go with you on?
7 days left. Oh no, I can't do it, sorry.
Okay, no worries, that's fine. Try not to point the camera until they say yes, just in case, okay? Just some people go.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you so much. So can I ask why you're here today?
Yeah, I'm here to just listen to women speak, literally the name of the event. Yeah, that's it really.
So I'm guessing you're aware of all the grooming scandal and everything that's going on. Is that a big part of the reason why you're here?
Yeah, it is as well, but it's also to support like the voices of like detransitioners, desisters, and just to support the cause of radical feminism. That's what I truly believe in.
Okay, so what is radical feminism to you?
To me, it's ensuring that women have rights, and those rights are sex-based rights, and you can't shy away from that. As soon as you kind of like give an inch, like people against those rights will take a mile, and we've seen that happen. We've seen it happen with like bathroom bills in America. We've seen it happen in this country as well. And for me, I just think that there's been too much of an encroachment on women's rights, and now we need to kick back and stand up.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Are you in agreement that there should be a public inquiry?
Yeah, absolutely. There has to be. Like, I agree with what Kellie J has said in that there's obviously a reason they don't want to do a public inquiry. There's going to be a lot of like corruption that comes out of that, I think, and there has to be a public inquiry. There needs to be, in order to ensure that these victims get the justice that they deserve.
Do you think that at all this is a cultural issue? Because obviously the main thing that people are talking about with all these grooming scandals, it seems to be predominantly Pakistani Muslim men that are committing these crimes. Do you think that people are right when they say that people say that are just far right racists, or do you think that there's actually some truth to the statistics?
I think there's some truth to it. Like, it's one of those things that people don't want to admit for fear of being labelled either far right or a xenophobe or a racist, but those sorts of labels are just thrown out to shut down the conversation rather than to have those conversations. And regardless of what the outcomes of those like inquiries are and of those conversations, we need to have them.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share on the general scale of the disaster that has been the Labour government and Keir Starmer at all?
I mean, not really. I just think that we're heading towards more and more of this, like, this same sort of wokeism, and it's just going to keep us pushing down the wrong path, and we need to shift the Overton window back to where it should be.
Yeah, I was wondering, because we've touched on a little bit about the trans issue and values and everything like that. I was wondering, have you heard of people like Claire White and Buck Angel?
Yeah, I'm aware of those.
Obviously, their channel is about exposing the woke,
Yeah.
and they themselves, even though they're transgender, they get called transphobes. What's your view on that?
I think it's silly. Like, it really is silly. There's only one way that you can kind of be like in with the cult of trans, and it's like you either follow them to the complete extent, and if you even go like a little bit back on what they're trying to espouse, they'll cast you out in a heartbeat. Like, I've had that happen to me. Yeah, like, I'm a detransitioner, so that's part of why I'm here to support this, because I'm like a living example of the damages that gender affirming care can do to a person.
Would you mind telling us a little bit of your story?
Yeah, sure. So when I was a lot younger, I presented to my GP, gender dysphoria. I was whisked off to the Leeds Gender Identity Clinic, shoved onto hormones, because I was told if I don't take hormones and I don't transition, I'll probably kill myself. And that's all you can, when you're told that as a child, as like a young person, that's the only thing you think that is the right thing, because these adults are telling you, these trusted adults, these professionals are telling you this is the right thing to do, so you just go with it. Of course you do. And then it's only taken until recently where I was like, this is so wrong, it's not right, I'm poisoning my body, I'm taking liberties, I'm making women compromise for my own security, and that's not okay. It just wasn't okay, and I don't want to see that happen to other trans people, other people that have gender dysphoria. There's other ways of treating it. There's gender exploratory therapy, which is amazing. There's an organisation called Beyond Trans, that offer gender exploratory therapy to young people and to adults, to get them away from this gender affirming care model and to make sure that they're not, harming themselves with either surgical intervention or medical intervention. Yeah, they're a fantastic organisation.
Oh, that's really, really great.
Yeah.
I mean, another thing that kind of gets me about the whole the trans wokeism is the documented targeting of neurodivergent people.
Yeah.
Like my little brother, he's nearly 10 years old, and he's autistic.
Yeah.
And there was one time where we bought him a little Elsa dress because he liked the blue sparkles.
Yeah, of course.
He wore it for one day,
Yeah.
and then that was it. But I know that if he was in mainstream school, he'd have been being told that he was in the wrong body.
Exactly. It's horrible. It's really horrible. And I think mentioning that on neurodivergency, I was listening to a podcast. I think it's Dr. Az Hakim, who wrote a book about transition stories for young female transitioners and how it's harmed them, and then for detransitioners. And he was mentioning that in his practice, I think it is him, I apologise if I'm wrong, the majority, if not all of the cases that he dealt with of people with gender dysphoria were all neurodivergent. It is targeted. It's horrible.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for giving
No
us
worries.
some of your
Thank
time.
you for letting me talk.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Thanks so
Have
much.
a great day.
It was a great day to start off the live. But yeah, oh wow, there's a lot more people coming to turn around. We're just waiting for Kellie to speak. I'm not sure if she's going to start. I don't want to like be in the middle of an interview and then start speaking, but I think I might have a little bit of time. Just about finding someone who would like to speak.
Not too far there.
Okay, no worries at all. How are you? No worries. Not a lot of people want to give interviews, it seems, but I will keep trying. Anyone in the chat saying that the sound's not okay, or is everything good? Good. Yes, anyone, if we do have any technical difficulties, please bear with. It's our first time doing it on our own. And yeah, but hopefully everything's going smoothly so far, except for the little minor thing with the mic. YouTube channel. Would you mind doing a quick interview? Talk about today and why you're here? Sure. Yeah, lovely, brilliant. What is the channel? Resistance GP. Right. What is that? So it's basically freedom, journalism, anti-mainstream media, and everything like that. So. Oh, I wish I had some flyers on me, but I could. Okay. It's literally just resistance GP.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, that's a good one for the shots, isn't it?
Right.
So, would you just like to tell us about a little bit about why you're here today?
Yep, so I've travelled from Glasgow today, so we travelled down this morning. So I guess I'm a TERF, you would call me a TERF. So I've been at a lot of these protests, particularly against the Gender Recognition Act in Scotland, where they were trying to bring in self-ID. So I was involved in a lot of protests outside the Parliament and writing to all the MPs and MSPs, etc., to try and get that stopped, which we managed to get stopped. In this case, though, this situation with the gangs, I guess I hadn't quite understood the depth of the numbers involved and also the depravity involved and what people endured and the level of cover-up and, well, the people that were supposed to help not helping. So I guess I just wanted to be present, at least to say, you know, we do care about this, we are watching this, women are watching what's going on here, and we really expect some serious action of one way or another, whether it's an inquiry or, you know, the perpetrators and those guilty of covering it up are, you know, they're brought to justice.
Yeah. What's your reaction to the amount of MPs, specifically Labour MPs, that rejected and voted against a public inquiry into this?
So I have a few thoughts on that. So first of all, the Tories were in power for a long time, so there's an aspect of what the hell were they doing?
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm swearing.
No, free speech.
Right, okay. You know, what were they doing? So I'm wondering if it was political manoeuvring because they were adding it on to another bill, the education bill. So I'm not entirely clear if that was the right avenue to get a public inquiry.
Yeah. I did want to ask you about the bill because encapsulated within the bill, obviously it's all, you know, children's safety and well-being.
Right.
But within that is a supposed ban on homeschooling. Do you think that could play into more indoctrination in the future if all children are forced to go into state school?
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, obviously, education has devolved. So I'm not overly close to English education legislation. But homeschooling is absolutely crucial. I actually homeschooled my daughters, one of my daughters. So that's just appalling. You know, particularly the level of indoctrination around gender identity ideology within our schools, just as an example. Yeah, that's a no. I take it that's going to happen though, because you've got such a big majority.
Well, yeah. I mean, not only that. I mean, people just get called far right, transphobic if you say anything about these kinds of issues. Islamophobic, especially when you're talking about the grooming gangs. Are you of the opinion that there is a statistical importance to the fact that the majority of these men committing these crimes were of Pakistani Muslim heritage?
Absolutely. So I believe that the perpetration of these acts was a racist act against the white young girls, and so I think there's a racist element from that perpetration that we have to recognise and accept. So I'm afraid the whole thing has a race element.
Yeah.
You know, without wanting to be racist or being judgmental on people, all Muslims, for example. But in this case, I'm afraid that is who was perpetrating the crime.
Yeah, it still has to be truthful. I mean, if it had been the other way around and hundreds of thousands of young Pakistani girls had been systematically abused and raped by a gang of white men, it would be everywhere.
Exactly.
And you wouldn't dream of calling someone a racist for pointing it out.
No, absolutely. And you would say that those white men were perpetrating a racist act of brutality. So,
Yeah, well, thank you so much for giving us a few moments of your time. I hope you have a lovely day.
And you, thank you. I will look out for your channels, darling.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, right, I think Kelly is still getting set up. Oh, we should have brought some flyers, shouldn't we? Hand out resistance.
Some business cards.
Yeah, business. That's the point. We need business cards.
One statement, the dying of losses.
No, that's fine. Absolutely. No worries.
No, sorry.
Sorry guys, it seems that everyone's really adamant to not do interviews. I am trying.
What about this man over here? Do you think he's unit as well?
Thank you so much. So could you just tell us a little bit about why you're here today?
I'm here to support Let Women Speak, which is a group of women who are interested in defending women's rights and free speech.
Yep. So are you here, is your main reason to be here in the wake of the grooming scandal?
No, I've been to lots and lots of Let Women Speak meetings.
Oh wow. So what was the main thing that that made you want to show your support of women?
Well, it's hard to say, really. Going right back, there are so many reasons. Gender ideology is the main driving force, which is bizarre kind of attempt to completely redefine social boundaries on the basis of very dubious reasons.
Yeah, and everything it doesn't matter if it's truthful as long as it's politically correct these days.
I don't think political correctness is necessarily a very helpful word to use.
Yeah.
But I do think that gender ideology flies in the face of accumulated wisdom of thousands of years and is in no way progressive.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, what do you think about the amount of MPs that voted against a public inquiry? Oh, okay.
I think, well, that's obviously it's a party political situation. Sorry, I'm going to have to listen to this.
Because some
Come in, come in. Not quite. What did you want? I'm on.
So I don't know whether you want to.
It's just endless, isn't it? It's just endless. Okay. Well, good afternoon, Oldham. Thank you very much for coming. I know it was really short notice, and this is, I'm not going to lie, slightly out of my field of expertise. So I'm just going to start by saying normally I'd start this whole thing with like a big, bold, aren't I hilarious tune. And on my way up, my husband said, what are you going to say? And I was like, well, I don't know, that I'm totally out of my depth. That when you read some of the things that have happened in this town and towns across this country, which is why I was compelled to come, what can you say? What can you really say to that? How many people knew, you could say, you could ask. How many people in positions of power knew and did nothing? How many of our politicians knew and did nothing? How many of our women's organisations knew and did nothing? And I'm not saying nobody did anything. I'm saying most people that knew about it did absolutely sweet FA. That's what I'm saying. And there are many reasons why, and I think some of them are the deepest, darkest, most grotesque depths of any of our imaginations. And I think some of them are just incompetence, some of them are cowardice. But it kind of doesn't matter why they shut up. It just now matters that now we can't let anybody stay in silence. We can't let this silence that has bred silence, we can't let it continue. So I implore everybody who's walking by to ask yourselves, why is it that we never saw any of the court transcripts before? Why was there a media blackout to know of the absolute depravity and torture and sexual torture that these girls went through? Why was that? How did that happen? How did that happen? Was the media complicit? Were the police complicit? I think we can say yes. And individual officers, you know, that we throughout history, there's these things that we throw out as British people through our sort of cultural references, which, you know, they were only following orders. When does that extend? Is it just in wartime? Like, is this not an endless war on girls and women in this country? Because it feels like an endless war. It feels like 60 years, and I've read 70 years this might have been going on. But we certainly know it's been going on long enough for it to be the entirety of many of our lifetimes. And is that what these girls, what did they expect? They expected to be not believed, or even if they were believed, they expected to be blamed.
Protected. That's what they expected.
Well, did they? No. This gentleman just said they expected to be protected, and I would imagine that expectation disappeared pretty damn quick. I'll tell you a story. So when I was 19, and I come from a town where, and I've told this story before, so I apologise if it's boring, but I come from a town where the council estates had manicured lawns and snapdragons and pansies in their borders, and they grew vegetables in the back garden, right? That's where most of my family lived. And I came up to somewhere called Ravenscliffe in Leeds, or it might be Bradford, but the school was called Eccles Hill. And the school had a number of problems. One of them was Pakistani girls going away on some holiday and never coming back. Nobody ever asking why they didn't come back either. Everyone just shrugging their shoulders. The other one was drug dealing by many of the young boys. And then the other one was, as they referred to it, child prostitution, right? And I went to this house on this really run-down estate, and every stereotype I'd ever seen on some sort of gritty drama was represented in this housing estate. Like, loads of the houses were boarded up, there were loads of broken things in the front gardens, there was dog's mess everywhere. And we went into this house, and this little girl was before us, and she must have been 13 because I was working in a high school, but she looked about 9. And her mum was there, and I remember the carpet. I just remember everything about this. I remember the smell of the place. And we came out, and I'm going to do a northern accent now, so I apologise, just to break up the severity of the story. And the guy goes, the EWO, the Educational Welfare Officer, the guy sent to look after these children and find out why they weren't in school, said, well, you know, she's on game. And I didn't even know what that was. She's on game, sister's on game, mum's on game, like this. And so the attitude translated to me was, you know, it's their fault. Nobody used the word exploitation. Nobody used the word rape. Nobody used the words victims. Nobody used those words at all. Prostitute, on game. And so this is the cultural backdrop that has enabled the gang rape and torture of girls for decades in this country, in every town where there is a population that will accept it. And unfortunately, however many it's reported, it's tens, if not hundreds more. Thousands upon thousands of girls in this country have just been cast aside. Nobody cares. The care workers didn't care when they returned to the care homes, the foster carers didn't care, the social workers didn't care, the teachers didn't care, the police didn't care, the MPs didn't care, the councils didn't care. Nobody in a position of power or authority gave a shit about those girls. And so what I want to do is I want to break the silence on this, and I'm not the only one, I'm only trying to amplify. I don't think I'm going to reinvent the wheel. I'm just trying to amplify the voices that for so long have just been screaming into the void, with everybody just, oh, it's just too messy. It's just too racist. It's just too prejudiced. They're just too trashy. We can't talk about this because. And the only reason, really, when you get to because, is we don't care about those girls enough to speak. That's the only reason this is continued, because no one actually cares more about those girls being raped than anything else that stopped them. That's the simple answer. So anyway, Let Women Speak is a platform that we've created and grown over the last few years. And mostly we've been sticking to the autonomy and boundaries of women on the basis that men can't be us. And wearing us as a costume is offensive. And what we're trying to do is trying to stem that flow and ensure that all our girls have boundaries. And then I would suggest over the last 6-7 decades that the systematic disease of the rape and torture of girls in this country is probably one of the biggest boundary erosions that we have seen about women and girls. So that's why we've decided to do this. So the idea is, if you want to speak, you can. If you're too worried about speaking, but you've got something written down and you want somebody here to read it for you, we are more than happy to do that. But this is about breaking that silence and elevating people's voices so that other people can hear them. And I promise you, it just breathes. Once you say, I'm going to speak, you enable so many other women to actually tell their story and to speak up for themselves. And then eventually there's so much noise that no matter how many people pretend to do the right thing and do absolutely nothing, the government won't be able to refuse an inquiry. A nationwide inquiry to get to the belly of it. This is not just about child sexual exploitation. This is about corruption, backhanders, drug dealing, cartels. This is about everything that you could possibly think it is. This is all connected. And so I just, anybody that wants to speak, you just have to nod in my direction and you can come and speak. Do you want to speak? Let me just make it normal height.
I read this on behalf of my brave friend Elle, who has asked me to speak her words today, and I'm honoured she's trusted me with it. I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was a beautiful summer in 1998. I've always been a curious, talkative girl, friendly to anyone who ever smiled at me. You see, smiles at home were few and far between. I came from a rough, tough, brutal home where motherly love was non-existent. Feelings of being unwanted and simply in the way was all I'd ever known. So when this older man who was opening a kebab and pizza shop at the top of my road showed me attention, I didn't see any red flags or danger signs. Why would I? We're supposed to trust adults, aren't we? It started with innocent conversation. How old are you? Would you like to earn some pocket money? Would you like a lift in my car? Until it soon turned into, would you like me to be your boyfriend? This proposition came from a 54-year-old married Muslim man. I don't know if I was flattered or embarrassed, but I brushed off his comments and pretended I didn't understand. I'm only 13, I would say. In time, he had groomed my family, giving my older sibling a job, whilst my mum was enlisted to peel the shop garlic for him, in return for free pizzas and unquestioned access to me. Who else would go and collect the free takeaways and pizzas for my family? What started with groping escalated into blatant sexual assault in the front of his shop in full view of his male employees, and later on raping me in his car whilst parked in a derelict car park in Salford. He asked me to marry his son. He propositioned me, requesting I come and visit some of his friends with him so he can share me with them. He would buy me clothes and jewellery, passing them on to my mother for me from his wife. He would give me money, food, after abusing me, almost transactional, and because I had nothing, I didn't turn it down. With the money, I would buy those in my peer group gifts in the hope that they would like me and want to be my friend. Such was my lack of self-worth. Due to being bullied at school, terrified of being at home due to my own mother being cold, cruel, violent and emotionally abusive to me, I kept what was happening to me to myself. I was self-harming, I had suicidal ideation, I was grieving the death of my grandmother, until over a year later I broke down in school and disclosed all to my science teacher. My family was shattered, our house was attacked, the windows were smashed. I was spat on in the street, abused by local yobs who had been paid off by my rapist. I was the second of 5 children, had to move home. I gave my statement to the police and he was charged later on. When I was 15 and whilst preparing for my GCSEs, I had to sit and tell a whole room what happened to me when I was faced by his barrister via a video link at Manchester Minchell Street, Crown Court. Due to the successful smear campaign, how his defence tore me apart. They called me wayward, drunk, violent, sexually promiscuous liar, how my father wasn't even my biological father, how I was unkempt, bullied and neglected. He was found not guilty on insufficient evidence. I was a child. After all the abuse and violence in my life, I was broken. I was shut down, determined to never tell anyone anything else ever again. If I was being abused or hurt by anyone, what was the point? It later transpired, told to me and my family by the Leeds CID and our family liaison officer, that my rapist and abuser had been well known in Doncaster as part of a well-known grooming gang, after he had also raped and abused other teenagers in South Yorkshire, and that once exposed, he was forced to leave the area, and that is how he ended up in Salford. I was provided no aftercare, no counselling, no apology. I was abandoned and discarded because I was a little white slag from a council estate in Salford. The word my rapist shouted at me when he drove past me whilst on bail. I am now a 39-year-old mother. I'm a born survivor, not only from childhood violence and abuse, but also grooming, gang, rape and abuse. I never let it break or define me. I've worked ever since leaving home. I am not nothing. I have a voice. We are now women, mothers, and as survivors, we deserve to be heard. Speaking up for every other girl that went through this. We were told that nobody wanted to touch our cases because it would incite racial hatred in the communities where we lived. Where is the respect for our truth? We were targeted because those Muslim men found white girls subhuman and easy targets. We were young girls who deserved to be protected, but instead we have been called liars, racist, right-wing xenophobes, disbelieved and failed by everyone from the police, social services, family members and the judicial system, all because they care about political posturing more than they care about the actual truth. We will be heard, we will speak out, no matter how uncomfortable it makes those who will never have to walk a day in our shoes. Yes, this is about race. It's about white girls being targeted and made dispensable because of our ethnicity and our impoverished working class background. Anyone that tells you otherwise is as ignorant as they are heartless. To my fellow survivors, never let your voice be stolen. They may have violated our young bodies and intimacy, but they will never ever take our bravery, courage and truth.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Would anyone else like to speak? We knew coming it was going to be difficult for people to talk, and that's fine. You don't have to speak at all. You can just be comforted that people have come out, and I just want women to understand that the accusations are supposed to shut you up. They are. They're supposed to make you too uncomfortable to come and speak. You know, we've had it as a Let Women Speak movement. We've been called, I mean, even the lesbians amongst us have been called homophobic, which is interesting. But we've been called transphobic and bigoted and Nazis and white supremacists. In fact, I've been called a white supremacist sometimes more than my real name. And I really don't care. Because, I don't know, I'm 50, so we had that sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt. And they don't. Words don't really hurt very much at all. But silence does. And silence is a really useful tool of authoritarians. It's far more powerful to silence your words than try and disagree with you. In fact, smearing is not as powerful as silence. And Ofcom, for example, I have a friend who works in Ofcom, and it never occurred to her, and she's on a very good salary, but she's quite high up in Ofcom, and I said to her, you do know that what trans activists do is they know that you have to be balanced on the BBC, so they don't attend debates, which means we don't have the debate. And I feel like I don't know what it is with the Pakistani Muslim paedophile rape and torture gangs that have happened across this country, that means that we don't talk about it. How is it that it's not on everybody's lips like the whole time? And I include myself. It's not like I've spoken about nothing else for the last 6 years. But my first kind of amount of shaming, deplatforming and so on came because I had talked about this issue. Because I talked about some things that I think are universally wrong. And it doesn't matter what those wrongs are. I think we should be allowed to talk about it as women. And I think sometimes people go, well, it's her choice. Well, and I'm just going to say it because I can't not say it, because I just can't. It makes me ill if I don't say the things I need to. But we have women serving 16 years in prison for revealing their hair and not wearing a hijab in Iran. So when people say that is a free choice, it is not a free choice. Those things are not free choices. When you have women stoned to death for not wearing a hijab, it is not a free choice to wear one, and it is a luxurious position to claim that it is a choice, because it isn't. It's not a fashion item. It is something that can get you killed. In Iran, there are women now who can't even look out of windows in Afghanistan and don't have a voice, and it doesn't come from nothing. It didn't spring out of thin air. It is carried through an ideology. I don't see any women able to use that particular ideology for their own furtherment. I just don't see it. So I thought I'd say it, because otherwise I'd kick myself, because I know that it's probably not something you can say very loudly in a place like this. But there's an academic, a Muslim academic, who lives in Holland or Netherlands. I don't know what the politically correct title is for that country anymore. The people who wear orange when they play football, those people. And she talks about Sharia courts in this country are detrimental to women. They are really, really backward for women. And they are probably not the same as Sharia courts in... No, they probably are. They're really bad for women. There's not a woman that comes out with an outcome that isn't beneficial to the man that she enters into that court with. So I just think we have to be really, really careful, mindful, that as tolerant people, we don't start becoming a victim of that tolerance while we welcome in intolerance against us. Who would like to speak?
Hello, thank you very much. I've come here today because I've been hearing this stuff for 40, 50 years. I'm a trained social worker, and I worked in Rochdale and I worked in Tees, some pretty dreadful things, and I've heard some pretty dreadful things, and I've been treated very badly as well for my views. In Rochdale, when I went to join Rochdale, it was 1993, and they just got over the satanic ritual abuse investigation, which had lasted for I don't know how many years. Nobody talked about it. The whole team had left because they were treated so badly by the organisation. We were told in a memo, you must not speak about this. If you do, you'll be sacked. So nobody spoke about it, of course. Also in Rochdale, I went to a child who was alleging that she was going to be sent to Pakistan the next day. And so we decided we'd go and speak to the parents in the house. We turned up, me and another social worker, and there were a line of men waiting for us, and they'd sat 2 chairs opposite them. So we were expected to discuss our concerns with this whole line of men. Nobody introduced themselves, with no idea who they were. The only thing I would say is there was a bloody white counsellor right in the middle of them, you know, and like I say, it was absolutely terrible. So those were my 2 experiences in Rochdale. When I moved to Calderdale, which I gladly did in 1995, I didn't really see anything at first. It was just quite lovely to get out of Rochdale. Terrible atmosphere in Rochdale. And I was glad to get out. But as I say, I went to Calderdale, and she went into a children's home. And after about a week, we got together and we had a bit of a chat, and I wanted to talk to her, and we got on really well. I used to go and see her every week. Then a first review came up, which is a meeting that everybody has all the professionals have input, and we all put reports in, and everybody, you know, has a chat and what they want to say. And there's a reviewing officer who supervises it. So I went to see the girl and said, what do you want to say? You know, have you got anything to say? Do you like it here? Have you got any complaints, etc.? Oh, she said, I'm going to London at weekend. Said I, huh? Who going to London with? Well, I'm going with Bill and Ben, two of these care workers in this residential home. I said, well, what are you going to London for? I'm going to meet Stereophonics. We're going to stay in a hotel. I'm going to have a portfolio done, and I'm going to be a model. I said, you're not? Oh, no, you're not. And of course, all this went into the report, and we get to the review. Reviewing officer reads it out. About a week later, I get called off that case. The reviewing officer gets the massive bollocking of her life because she was told she shouldn't have ever read it out. And I was told that anything I put into people's records would be checked and it would be taken out if they didn't like it. As time went on, I found out there were loads of abuse going on in Calderdale as well, all the children's homes. There was a massive investigation at Skircutt Lodge. The girl where I put that girl was in Burnley Road. You know, you just couldn't credit it at all. It was totally corrupted from top down. Anyway, that's kind of my experience, or a bit of it. What I would like to say, finally, is if you've got children, if you've got grandchildren, watch out, because they're going to start messing about with the Children Act. And what they're saying is they're going to make it easier for children, everything's going to be a lot better, they're going to change the syllabus, blah, blah, blah. What they're going to do is take your rights away. They're going to remove some of your parental rights. You won't dare speak up. If you don't like what the kid's coming home and saying, you're in trouble. You could end up being arrested. You know, so all I want to say is just watch out. I have to say there's some fabulous people like Sonia Poulton and John Wedger who are doing some fabulous work. John Wedger is the satanic specialist, satanic sexual abuse, and Sonia Poulton's a journalist who did a drama, or no, it wasn't a drama. What am I thinking of? Yeah, a documentary called Paedophiles in Parliament. Please look at it. It will tell you so much more. I won't say any more. Thank you very much.
Oh, consent. That's what children are going to be given the right. A long time ago, I talked about Gillick, and it was used against me as if I suddenly turned into a rabid pro-lifer. But I think Gillick competence gives easy access to very vulnerable girls to contraception and abortion away from their parents or caregivers, people in a position of authority over those children, which should be parents. Sometimes can't be parents because the parents can't parent. But it's, you know, it's the same in the United States of America with Planned Parenthood. If a child, a minor, a girl, can go and access contraception, then she's far easier to traffic, right? I mean, it's a gift to traffickers, rather than try and sort out the relationships between parents and children and ensure that parents don't lose the grip of rights over their children. We seem to just find these solutions all the time that just take the parents out of the equation. At the moment, our government is trying to sort of get your kids into state schools from about, I don't know, 3.5 weeks, with 7 meals a day, all for free, that we all have to pay for. But the breakfast clubs, I don't think that's a good thing. If we really cared about our children, we'd be trying to make them have more time at home with well-paid parents who can actually afford to stay home and look after their children. Governments that just keep trying to tell you, oh, we can give them 5-day-a-week care from 3 months, from 6 months, from 9 months. How about mum? How about mum's care? And I don't mean ladies. Let's go back to a time that, I don't know, my family could never afford for women to stay home. But let's not go back to a time where women aren't in the workforce, but let's go back to a time where women who do crappy jobs that they don't like very much don't have to rush back to do the crappy job to pay somebody else to look after their child who also doesn't really enjoy her job. Let's do that. I mean, it's not that much for their kids. They have to pay for lunches, school trips. And then, I could go on a rant for ages about this, but I won't. But there is a massive disconnect between what we know to be humanity, humane, and the things that we are being pushed into that tear our families apart, that take our voices away, that take our rights away, that take our connections with our children away. And something has got to give, and I think at the moment it's at such an accelerated speed that the only response to any of this eventually is going to be white anger. And I mean like white rage, blood, red, I'll use a different colour. Human rage, that's what I mean. Like just absolute rage, because they keep kicking you in the head and telling you that nothing's happening to you. And I don't know what the answer is to that, besides people getting more and more confused and then angry. And what we saw last summer, which was called far-right riots, which actually started as people a little bit concerned, a lot concerned about the murder of 3 little girls in a dance class, which seemed to coincide with somebody else plotting to bomb a Taylor Swift concert, and then we had the bombing of Ariana Grande's concert. It's no coincidence that there's girls, young girls and women going to watch these artists that were killed. It's no coincidence that that's the target. And what happened about that? When people got angry and said, well, finally, we're going to go and take a march, you know, a bit like the BLM marches. Do you remember those? Because they were virtually, like, they were just peaceful and wonderful, and we all joined in, and our politicians took a knee. And do you remember those 3 little girls died, and our politicians, and the police, no, didn't join in, didn't take a knee, didn't find some virtue in that anger, didn't kind of come out and everyone say, isn't it a shame, we must all. I mean, maybe if those 3 little girls had been, I don't know, in America and killed, and we could have borrowed the outrage and replicated it somehow, and it wasn't really our own, maybe it'd have been all right. But it just seems that this thing is like any other thing. If you talk about it, it's far worse than the actual act of it. Talking about the Pakistani, Muslim, paedophile, rape and torture gangs that operate with impunity throughout this country, talking about them is far, far worse than the actual suffering and the rapes of those girls. Talking about it is worse. Talking about a man getting his penis out in your child's changing room, in your daughter's changing room, is far, far worse than the indecent exposure, criminal act of that man showing his genitals to your kids. Because that's where we are right now. Don't you dare talk about it. And if you talk about it, you better use some weird language where you say, I just hope the far right don't take this because it'll be terribly racist. It's going to cause outrage. The far right response to the rapes is going to cause outrage. Do you know what, mate? I reckon the rapes, knowing about the rapes is going to cause the outrage. I think that might be a source of any of the responses, because if our government, our police, our social workers, our councils, our teachers, our foster carers, our women's, like well-funded women's sector, don't start talking about this, you leave a lovely little vacuum, and anything happens that you don't like will be your fault. So that's what I want to say about this whole kind of, oh, those people talking about it, they're going to cause people to be racist. No, mate. The rape's happening, and you not talking about it, that suppression of truth that often causes the most anger. Because if we're all dealing with it, we can deal with it, right? Like I tell my kids, just don't lie. I'm like, you could have stolen all the biscuits, just don't lie. Because the lie is something I can't deal with. That's what we teach our kids. And then our politicians are like, well, I think, you know, there's child sexual exploitation everywhere. Oh, is there? All right, well, let's not talk about that then. Because if it's everywhere, if there's some white men that have done it, then let's not talk about this culture being bred in this particular community. Let's not talk about that, because that would be racist. I mean, I don't remember, you know, Jimmy Savile, he did some great charity work. And we should never have criminalised Jimmy Savile or talked about him, because there are other men prejudice against really seedy men in gold lame. Lifelong perverts. And I think what we have been involved and have been on the front line trying to help these. But for some of us, it's difficult to imagine the depravity in these minds of these men. And let's remember, sometimes there were 10 or 11 of them in the room with one small girl that they tortured and raped and put cigarettes out on her. And they might have been brothers and uncles and cousins, or maybe sometimes all in one. We don't really know, but they knew each other very, 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 very well. And they would just relate to something kind of pretty wholesome at home. So to all of those Muslim women and girls, the daughters raised in the households of these men, I just want to say, there is a place for you if you ever want to speak about it. Don't think that this is against you. This is against men in your communities. It is not against the women and the girls who had to suffer these men also. You'll find liberation too, you never know. You can liberate yourselves from the authoritarianism that has been just forced upon you probably your whole lives. But there is no reason for any Muslim woman to feel the shame of her father if she knows that he would... I'll give you this as well.
Okay. Oh dear. Hi, my name's Belle Staffy. I've lived, thank you. Put a bit of weight on because I stopped smoking 6 months ago, so if you think, who's that large woman, it's me now, I'm afraid. Right, I'm just going to be very brief because I want to write an article on this to be published. Cannabis. He's going down.
Everyone who can hear me, I'm just going to move around to this side to get a bit of that signal.
Substances. This is happening regularly. Why can't we do something about it? And she said, well, if we write their ethnicity down, it will upset social cohesion. So if I tell the truth about what's happening here with predominantly white, very young girls, and they were very disturbed girls. And what I'll end on is on Sunday night, when these girls used to be returned, these girls would look like they'd been mauled by animals, because they had been mauled by animals. Some of them were completely silent and withdrawn and disassociated. There was one girl we had to call an ambulance to because there are only children here. She was bleeding so badly from her anus. And I still can't get over it. And I'd forgotten this period of my work in Rochdale in 1991, 92, 93, because I'd seen it happening, and I'd seen the results of the girls coming back in who were mauled, literally bruised, mauled, and there were groomers, these rapists, made them feel like grown-ups. And to make a child, any working class child, feel like a grown-up, you offer them cigs, you offer them vodka, you make them feel grown up, and then the sex comes into it. Well, you've had all that, and it's part of it. This is part of being grown up. And that's really what I'd like to kind of, I don't want to go on too much about it because it is, and I felt guilty because I was part of the problem, except I had no power whatsoever. Even if I'd gone out with a hammer and smashed the windscreens, I wouldn't have qualified as a social worker. I'd have had an offence of criminal damage. So I wouldn't have been able to, if I had not played the game and not reported this, I would not have qualified as social worker, and I would not have been a sex offender specialist. And after working in the children's homes, the local authority ones, with this going on, especially on a Friday night after mosque, I couldn't work with children after that, and I decided to work for 20 years with the perpetrators, the groomers, the rapists, and that's how I got to be a specialist in that type of behaviour, because when I worked with those girls, I just wanted to cry. And it's not about me, but it has a ripple effect. The effect on me is, I wasn't much older than some of them, about 10 years older. The effect on me was devastating, and I blocked it out for 30 years. And it was Maggie Oliver, who is an icon to me, that she tripped a memory with just some dates. And I was thinking, yeah, we had the girls from Rotherham to keep away from the grooming gangs in Rotherham. That's why we put them in Leeds. And then it all started coming back. And the worst was standing there, not being able to protect them in any way whatsoever. Because before the white girls were led into the cars and groomed, it was the Sikh girls that were targeted by Pakistani men using the boyfriend model, put the best looking one out, the young one, and then take the girls off, because they'll go with a young man who is very pretty, and there are some very pretty Pakistani men, and then they would meet the rest of the grooming gang. And helpless. Those girls went on into prostitution, and I know that because I did a lot of work in prostitution in Holbeck. Some of them will have committed suicide. To deal with that, bless them. I guess I can't say anything else really.
I suspect there's many women up and down the country who have issues that I talked about, but then I've talked a lot about women's. Just remember that what you say, trainee social worker, and I say, hey, do you know what's happening to those girls? Someone will go, oh my gosh, let's stop it. Here's the way that we stop it. These are the safeguarding. This is what you can do, and then we can just stop it. And we can put like a curfew of 7 o'clock on the house, but we have mechanisms, we have safeguarding policies in place that stop these girls from being vulnerable to this abuse. And I think it's so shocking when you read race theory and other theories that are just about silent people trying to implement this silencing on what you can and cannot say, and the history that you have to revise. I don't think there is a good motive for doing it at all. I think you're either completely stupid or evil. I don't think there's any way in between when it comes to how we silence people. But like a previous speaker said, just be mindful of the things that your schools are doing, because we are in really dangerous territory with this very authoritarian government. I don't know if you follow, I think she's called Womando on Twitter, and she does the sentences that paedophiles get. She shows you the sentences. And do you remember the woman who, I mean, it was a terrible tweet, it was an awful tweet. I'm not going to defend her tweet, the Tory party's councillor's wife. And she tweeted something, she deleted it, she realised it was a stupid thing to say. And somehow, that was crowbarred when it was like, oh, I wish they'd just do this. That was made incitement. Well, I thought incitement would be if I said to all of us today, hey, why don't we all, and then, I don't know, buy me a Lamborghini. Right, that would be incitement to make my ego feel even better, right? So if I said, oh, I wish everyone would just get a Lamborghini, that is not incitement, is it? I wish everyone could just give me some, but if I just said, now you all must, let's do it together, right now, 7 o'clock, let's go and do it. I think that's incitement. I think it was a really dodgy charge. And then she's offered what? Well, if you do this, a bit of good behaviour, you get a reduced sentence. And all these people who don't have lawyers, who don't have tea. And then Free Speech Union, someone's saying to me. Free Speech Union. Join them. Join Let Women Speak first. And anyway. So anyway, so they pleaded guilty, like foolish. These super quick courts, like the courts to deal with paedophile and rapists, those super quick courts where those, super quick prison. No remand either. So she was held from the moment she was arrested. And then you got paedophiles. Oh, he'd only looked at 80,000 images of like the worst category of child. He'd only done that. He's only a predatory paedophile that maybe hasn't been caught doing something yet, but he's downloading lots of practice pictures. But he's not a scourge on society, unlike those terrible rioters, unlike those people that were protesting about stuff. They're a scourge on society. They're a threat to the establishment. But not the paedophiles, because the only conclusion is what? That there are paedophiles represented in all strata, that there's a nice little handshake you can do, and you can all join in together. Is that what we're talking about? Because that's what it feels like we're talking about. Feels like I haven't even seen Eyes Wide Shut, so this might not be the right reference. But it kind of feels like we're all in this world where people are going, no, there's nothing going on. There's nothing going on at all. No. What you think that just because that judge said, you're a good man, I know you've abused quite a few kids, but you've done some charity work, you're a good man, that why would you think that judge is also... Turn a blind eye to those rape gangs, turn a blind eye. Why is that? Oh, it's policy. Yeah, it's policies. Social cohesion, is social cohesion another word for, hang on a minute, Dave, I'm involved? Is that another word for that? Is it another word for, there are some benefits to us as a police force, as a social work service, as a foster care system, as a care worker service? There is some benefit to us to enable, to continue to, as a payoff. I don't believe in altruism. I don't think anyone was saying, well, I'd quite like those, a tangible benefit to them, and only a really good inquiry on a local and national level will reveal what the payoff was. Was it money? Was it drugs? Was it cover-up? Was it criminality? Was it joining in? What was it? And that's the only thing that will answer these questions. And if I was in the police force here, which I understand historically, if not right now, and I thank you all for coming, but historically and right now, most of the officers join the police force to uphold the law, and pension's not that good. There's someone there benefiting from a pension, apparently. She said they're quite good pensions. I don't know. Maybe they are in comparison, but these police officers put themselves on the line. We know that what do we want to do when we want protection? What do we want to do? We want to be able to call the police, and we think they're going to come and protect us, right? And that didn't happen for those girls. But that's why many people join the police force because they genuinely believe in upholding the law and protecting citizens. Can you imagine how it would have felt for those officers also to turn up at that house where all those men were taking advantage of those girls and then arrest the girls? I mean, I see it at Speaker's Corner. It's an upside down business that we're in right now. And therefore you have chaos. When you have chaos, then you have authoritarianism. Angry. Is it first the gods seek to destroy, they make mad? And I just feel right now that they're really trying to make us all mad. So just hold your words, because that's another thing that us, and I know I sound terribly posh, but us working class people, and I'm probably not working class anymore, but I do have a big TV. So in many ways, I feel I'm still more to that particular reality. And I wear expensive sunglasses, but you know, I don't pay my bills on time. So what they do, what the effect, the way that they get you all, is because if you're a victim and you sound too eloquent, did it really happen? Was it really that bad? If you're a victim and you sound quite angry and maybe you swear and maybe you can't hold your temper, well then, you know, who would listen to you? And no wonder. And then if you're another sort of victim and maybe you don't make it, or maybe you make it with drugs, and maybe you make it with cycles of repeated abuse after abuse after abuse, then did you ask for it? So there is no, that's the way they get you. The way they get us working class people, I sound like an idiot saying that. So I'm really sorry, because I don't quite know where I am on the class structure of this country. But the way they get working class people, and they make you sound stupid, and they make you sound like you're savages. That's what they do. And they can hit you over the head repeatedly with their rhetoric, you say. So just be really mindful. Hold your tempers as much as you possibly can when you speak about this. But don't hold the content, don't hold anything back, don't be afraid of saying Pakistani, Muslim, paedophile, rape and torture gangs. Don't be frightened to say it, because they don't want you to say it. But don't be afraid to say it every single time. And I know some people want us to use grooming gangs because that's how they got the girls. But they were rapists and torturers that use grooming as a method so they can rape and torture. And they did, I mean, I can't imagine men, and then we'll all, I mean, just, dear God, it's just never-ending evil. It's just...
Speaking my friend's words, you might know her from Twitter, Hitch, Orwell was right about the left. There is so much that I could say about the rape gang situation, but what I'd like to focus on today are some of the destruction techniques that gets used to minimize our anger at these particular crimes and their cover-up. We are continually told that girls raped by immigrant rape gangs are only a small part of the overall child sex. I've seen TERFs use this argument, not just sock femmes, actual TERFs. It's okay for some women to focus our attention on one element of child sexual abuse and male depravity, just as anti-surrogacy campaigners focus on one aspect of the exploitation of women based on our reproductive capacity. That is after erosion and added risk posed to women and girls by this particular group of men. We point out that we did not consent to these men being in our spaces, that we already face enough risk for men without this added burden. I would argue that the same applies to these rape and torture gangs, the majority of whom are Pakistani or Muslim immigrants from other countries. We were not asked if we were okay with mass immigration of men from not consent to these men being in our country, just as we did not consent to trans-identified men being in our spaces. All rapists are men, that is true. There is no safe demographic of men and others. We know this is the case for trans-identified men, obfuscation. We don't crumble when we're told that trans women only commit a small amount of male violence against women and girls. We must do the same when detractors tell us that rape and torture gangs only represent a small amount of child sexual abuse, when we are called racist, Islamophobic, far-right and bigoted for highlighting this particular problem. We know that rape is an act of hatred, not sexual desire. Men rape women and girls because they despise us. They are misogynists living in a porn-soaked misogynist society. Rape gang members target mostly white British girls because they tell their victim they are white trash, that their religion allows them to rape non-Muslims. And yet, we are accused of hatred for speaking out and identifying which men commit these particular crimes. Crime data from all across Europe shows that immigrant men from non-European countries are far more likely than European men to sexually assault and rape women and girls, especially in a group. We might not like what this data shows us, but we should not ignore it, no matter how uncomfortable it is, no matter what names we are called for raising it. We are told not to focus on this demographic of men or to mention their religion helped them cover it up for decades. Every aspect of the men's race, culture and religion, or lack of religion, would be discussed at every possible opportunity. We can't have sacred castes of men who are protected from criticism or scrutiny. It doesn't matter if they're vicars, troons, Pakistanis, Muslims or immigrants. We must be able to do it. At times, some of us will focus on one or another particularly pressing form of male violence, and that's absolutely okay. So as Kellie J would say, be brave, because if not you, who? If not now, when? These gangs have been operated with near impunity for... Thank you for listening, and thank you to Let Women Speak for giving women the opportunity to speak out on this topic.
Okay, did anyone else want to speak? All right then. Yes, of course. She's unknown. She's unknown.
Oh, I think I managed. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. Hi everyone. I didn't really come here to. Oh, more up here. I didn't really into her appearance on these occasions because we've had to sit and look at this scruff bag in front. No, I actually came up here far more to listen on this occasion. I think probably a lot of us feel like that, and to just really to try to lend my bit of support to the women that I've been, now that I'm finally on X. It only took me about, I don't know, 10 or 15 years after everyone else, but the women that I've been seeing on X, that I've been following, the survivors who have been calling for a national public inquiry into this, and I've learned a lot from seeing what they've had to say. And I must admit, you know, I thought there had been this public inquiry. You know, I remember years back reading a couple of years ago. And I must admit, I thought, well, that's it. There has been this, and you know, so it's very easy when you're hearing I don't know how much faith I ever have in these public inquiries. They always seem to go on for years and years and years, and then whatever. A lot of the people who, you know, should have received compensation have died in the meantime. The same with the post office scandal. You know, those. So the WASPy women, yeah, the WASPy women, and the. With the so I can see the calls for like, well, let's implement what we've got, but I do think, and having, you know, seen these transcripts, do you know, I remember at the time, I don't know who else remembers at the time when the verdicts came out from the you know, from the Oxford rape and torture trials, and I remember, even though that was quite a long time ago now, I remember the BBC reporter saying that that the details of this is too distressing and we can't broadcast them. And that stayed in my mind all this time because the details they did broadcast were absolutely horrific. And so of course now we're actually seeing some of these details which are, well, you don't need me to say, you know, they really defy any kind of verbal response we can give them, don't they? So I do think that what is just starting isn't randomly, but it seems to be a bit random. What, you know, all of a sudden there was a you know, drama on the post office scandal, and suddenly everyone was talking about that. And now, you know, years after we've known about this, now there's all this social media attention by, you know, richest man in the world, and everyone's talking about this. But let's make sure that we keep on not just talking about it, but there is, you know, that there is finally at last is being exposed, the nature of it, the specificities of it, you know, actually what went on it's a thing in and of itself. It's not just part of a wider child sexual abuse. I mean, obviously there was child rape on a mass scale going on, not with complete impunity. You know, there have been some convictions, but nothing like on the scale that should have happened for what we now know has been going on. So I just want to lend my support to those women like Sammy Woodhouse and others that I've been following, Maggie Oliver's Voice, you know, all of these women I'm sure we're all following, to say yes, we will do what we can. Finally, that some kind of revelation and really unflinching investigation of what went on and how this was allowed to happen, that could come out. And surely that call for a public inquiry, it doesn't stop any of the recommendations of, you know, that have been established. It doesn't stop them happening. Of course they should be implemented. I mean, to be honest, this mandatory reporting, I thought you had a legal obligation to report. I thought there was you know, I've always understood that there was that we're saying would preclude the recommendations that have already been developed. But let's not shy away from the reality of what's gone on. It has to be properly uncovered, and the voices of those survivors that have just started to be listened to, let them be heard.
Did you want to speak?
Doing this. It's just a single incident that happened to my family. I have a daughter who's 33. She now lives in Italy. But 10 years ago, she was walking through our village, 10 miles from Blackburn, 300 yards from home. She was on a date with a young chap who happened to be wearing a dress, but they're on a date, and a car pulled up beside her. 4 Pakistani Muslim men in the car, and they tried to drag her into the car. This was in the centre of the village on the high street. There were cameras all over the place. She was terrified to death. Help came out, dragged into the car. In my house there was a female police officer. When I was explaining, and when she was explaining what had gone on, they weren't interested in what she was having to say. They weren't listening. It was as if they had a different script. I wonder where that script comes from. It's political. It's political, and it's infiltrated down. I have no qualms with the police. The police do a very difficult job, but they are reading off a script. Now, in my house, this police officer tried to tell me, and they also accused her of trying to start a riot because she'd managed to loosen herself because this lad was fighting for her, accused of trying to start a riot. So this is the state of play we are in. You know, where I live, it's a type of place, it's got tapas bars, wine bars. You know, it's a nice place. This happened 300 yards outside her house, minding her own business with a fella she was out on a date with. And we've got to the stage now where cruising around in cars and grabbing at girls. So this is political, right from the top all the way down. It's not only just Oldham, all these other places. It's nice little villages that happen to be outside towns. Now, she now lives in Italy. She's safer there. I wonder why she's safer there. Because they wouldn't put up with this shit. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
I'd like to say that's the first time I've ever heard anything like that, but it's not. There's somebody shared their story on Twitter about their daughters trying to be dragged in. My husband's been watching this thing about soldiers, and I've had the pleasure of watching it as well, because like most women, I love the Second World War. And everything that's ever been told about it is just my thing. But I was watching it, and I was watching these men, and obviously it's a drama. Like, who would my grandfather, who got on that boat, and when he was on that boat, the men that weren't coming home knew they weren't coming home. And I guess I still have the memory, and I got that first story told by my grandfather to me. So it's a very real story for me. It's not a picture, it's not a book. It's not some testimony that I've read somewhere about some account of something. It's a really real story. And I just thought, who are those men? Well, they're the men that went out and got arrested for fighting and causing a riot. I'm not saying that all of them were not criminal, and I'm not saying all of them were great people at all. But I'm saying that the men in our society right now, who get most of our condemnation and our kind of bad press, bad view, see them as oiks. They're the front line men. They're the men that would be cannon fodder, right? So we just have to try and step back sometimes and see things with a really broad focus. The only reason hundreds and thousands of girls across this country were raped and tortured by Pakistani, Muslim, paedophile grooming gangs was because we didn't care enough about the girls to stop it. I mean, we can say it's loads of other stuff and how that manifests. How did it manifest? Well, you don't want to be racist, but racist against what? Rape. The sacrifice of our girls, or being seen as being racist. Not even being racist, just being seen as being racist. And we chose the sacrifice of our girls. There's nothing else that makes sense on thousands of girls. Can we have 2? Can we make each council do 1? Can we arrest some people? Do you reckon we could do that? Those women that sent those girls back out when that girl came home and asked for money for a taxi and then went out and got raped again. She'd been raped, she got home. If it's a crime for me to go and, I don't know, go to that safe deposit box centre and go and steal something from it, if that's a crime, an arrestable offence, and there's shaming, blacklisting, making people unemployable, losing their pensions. I see you. I'll raise you, losing their pensions. But that's what we want to see. We want to see if you do wrong by others and allow the most depraved treatment of vulnerable people that you're supposed to be looking after, you're paid to look after, then I want to see there's some sort of punishment, criminal hopefully, for each and every person who was party to that. But thank you very much, Oldham. I'm really glad we came. I hope women across the country and girls, if you're in these vulnerable positions or have ever been, if there's something that you want to stand up so your warm body in these freezing cold temperatures will be like the penguins. But if you want to come and show support, we are going to go to lots of towns and cities, and we are just going to keep doing it. And if I'm the only person that speaks, I mean, it's fine by me, but I think it'll get quite boring. But hopefully what this does to everyone looking on is it shows you that there is a place to speak. And the more of you that speak, and the more of you that show courage, the more people that will feel that they can show courage too. So thank you so much, Oldham. I'm sorry that we had to come in these circumstances, but thank you.
I'm not sure yet. Right, okay, right now she's really kind of going to get into it. Get a selfie.
Yes, of course.
I'm not oh, that would be the best.
Laura, if I just grab just one moment, I'm just going to take this so just a bit. Am I doing that right? Give me 2 seconds. You look fine. Well done, well done.
Could I just say I thought you were I was actually raised in the Muslim everyone in there hates me.
Okay, so I'm just waiting for Kellie to be free. I am so sorry to all of our viewers about the technical issues. I know that there's been some buffering. I don't know if it's a signal issue or what. Everything was good on our end, and then it just randomly started going a bit weird. And then all of a sudden the live just crashed, and I got it back up and running as quick as possible. But I'm really sorry. As I said, this is our first time doing this on our own, so if we've done something wrong, I'm really sorry, but please just be patient. And yeah, I'm just waiting for Kellie to be free, and then hopefully I'll get a good interview with her. Yeah, but we are recording everything on the GoPro, so there will be footage to come out after if the live stream hasn't been very good. So
I'm a journalist. So
oh, okay, no,
I'm interviewing.
No,
Do you want to enjoy yours?
and I've got I'm hoping
I'll give you a leaflet and then you can contact me.
I'd love to stay in touch.
We're trying to get some pans of the crowd.
Okay, whereabouts?
Yeah.
Things have changed though. Yeah, okay.
Right, she's just packing up, so I'm going to see if we can get any more interviews.
No, well, I know where you're coming from. No worries, that's absolutely fine. They wanted to be cut the hair.
I've been at Glasgow and I've also and I was at
Don't feel any
It's okay. It's okay as long as I don't want to put. Oh, right. Okay.
No, that's fine. But yeah, obviously, your speech was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
I am going to ask the same question to Kellie, but I suppose one of the main questions that's burning on my mind is: do you think that the government are labelling us as racist when we talk about this and all the like of it because they want civil unrest? They want a revolt so that then they can blame us again for being all rowdy and everything. Like, do you think that that's where this is heading?
I think the government are being very provocative. I don't understand their behaviour. The needs for a public inquiry, I can't understand where they're coming from. I can't understand where Jess Phillips is coming from, because she made it all about her when she was protesting about Elon Musk's, Twitter. I don't know where we are. I just don't. I'm 61 years of age. I have an interest in politics, but I've arrived at that point where I am very fearful as to what's happening in this country. Starmer, I think we're going to see political prisoners in this country. I think he's going to try and shut down what's being said in places like this. Thank God for Kellie J and the work she's doing. So I'm fearful, and I made that comment. My daughter now lives in Italy. She's been in Italy about 7 years. She's in a safer environment, and it's because it's retained its Christian cultural heritage, and it wouldn't put up. There wouldn't be this silence. There wouldn't be this silence.
Do you agree with the statement that some people are saying that this is a imported problem? The government has imported this upon us, and they continue to say that diversity is our strength, when this is the result of cultures that are being forced to live in close quarters to each other that have diametrically opposing views.
Right. I'm of mixed culture. My mother was French. My former partner, children's father, was English Italian. So we had a European background, a shared cultural background, Greek, Roman, Christian, and we've come through a system of rights and respect for women. The problem we have is the immigration that's come from Pakistan in particular. Too many people. There's not been the assimilation, and there aren't demands. There need to be demands on language, maybe signing a declaration of respect for individual rights, respect for other religions. I don't know what to say without getting myself in trouble, but there's something very, very wrong. And the difference between Italy, yes, it has immigrants in, but it's smaller. Yeah. There's greater assimilation. There has not been the assimilation here, and and what we're experiencing, some of the behaviour, it's horrific. It's horrific, and politically they've known about it for a long time. I heard rumours of it 30 years ago. Some of the speakers go back 60 years. So people know. But we're not allowed to speak about it.
Well, cover-ups of this kind are no new thing. I mean, even without the cultural aspect. I mean, my mother was sexually abused in her early teen years, and it was covered up because he was the mayor of the town and a very liked football coach. And so cover-ups of this have been nothing in particular. I think the main outrage is people keep saying like, oh, what if it was white men? The thing is if there was a white gang that was doing this, they'd be convicted.
Yes.
They would be convicted without question.
There has to be equality in the law.
Yeah.
There isn't anymore. And that is political.
Yeah.
You know, everyone should be treated with decency, respect, irrespective of culture, ethnicity. It's not happening.
Yeah.
And the perpetrators are within a particular community, and that community needs to get itself sorted out.
We need to be able to say statistical truths. Is there a direct message that you would like to take the opportunity to say to the Labour government, Keir Starmer, or just the government in general? Because, I mean, the Tories didn't exactly handle this well when they were in power either. Is there any sort of message that you'd like to say?
Start behaving in the interests of the British people.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for giving us a few moments
Okay,
of time.
take care.
Thank you as well.
I don't care if he did it because he lost a bet. I don't care if he thinks it's the most pressing issue on earth. I don't care if he doesn't care about it at all, just fancy stirring stuff up, as long as everybody talks about it. I think we have to just stick to that. What is important about this? The important thing is that people talk about it. Can you have your name? My name is Kellie J. Keane, and I am leader of Party of Women and founder of the Let Women Speak movement. All right, really nice to see you.
Thank you.
Okay,
so much.
cheers.
Thanks.
Do you want to head to? We'll head to the near the pub.
Yeah,
come
yeah,
with.
all
Come
right
with.
then. Yeah.
Really nice to
Take a
see
little
you.
walk.
I'm not going to the pub. Just say thank you very much. You know what you're looking at, but it's a photograph of the... How did you know that? Everyone else gets it wrong. It's a reflection on the bubble.
That's lovely. Thank you so much.
Where is you as well. In London. Honestly, you make me feel sane in this crazy world. So,
Yeah, we've been trying to use the hotspot, and for some reason the local
See you, Michael, sorry.
Right.
Hi.
Hi.
It's so nice to finally
so
meet you like up
sorry.
close. No, don't apologise at all. It's been really great. There's been great speakers as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think the main thing on everyone's mind is obviously the massive grooming scandal at the moment. Do you think that it's an imported issue?
I don't know if it's imported. I don't know because maybe the grooming aspect, and maybe so many free girls, free as in allowed to walk free. Maybe that's an element of this that we don't know. But look, if your culture says that women need to be covered up, otherwise they're asking for it, which, let's face it, that's like the fundamental basis of wearing a hijab and wearing long clothes and wearing a niqab. It's all about, if a man sees too much of you, then something bad's going to happen to you and it'll be your fault. That can't translate into this.
No.
It can't translate into then thinking that a 14-year-old girl who's allowed to go out, that you comply with drink and drugs, doesn't deserve it. Obviously they're not right, but you can see the linear logic through that, which is why I've always, you see little girls sometimes like 6-7 years old in hijabs, and you're like, they have to learn that from a really young age that they need to cover. So yeah, I do think it's important. I don't know if the total method, I don't know if this particular thing goes on in Pakistan, but we know that it's definitely an imported view of women that maybe can only come from a different culture. Like we're not. How cold are you?
I'm sorry, I know. I'm just gonna what's your reaction to the amount of MPs that rejected the idea of a public inquiry? Do you think it's because it's purely what they say about the unrest within the citizens and the possible racial riots, or do you think there's something more sinister at play and maybe implications?
I don't know. When it comes to MPs, I think I usually err on the side of incompetence over conspiracy, right? But then this feels a bit more like a conspiracy. It really does. Iris, are we going in here? Okay. This feels more conspiratorial. I genuinely listened to Peter Hitchens the other day, who said people don't realise that Keir Starmer is further left than Jeremy Corbyn. I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's something authoritarian and very, very worrying about what is going on at the moment.
I mean, we have Jess Phillips, the safeguarding minister, who is literally
amazing.
Her job title is specifically for this, and she has just failed on all counts. Do you think that it would be solved by just a complete revamp of the people in power?
I don't know, because we had a democratic election and people are stupid, so they voted Labour. But the electorate, you can't then can't undo, and I don't think we ever get what we voted for.
Yeah.
But maybe we get the government we deserve. So I don't know. When it comes to, I don't want to see that. I do want to see people just being honest. You know, look, the reason Nigel Farage has any appeal whatsoever is because he speaks in the language that people speak in. Like that's the Trump effect. That's why populism is a thing, because it's popular. And too many of our politicians now have posture. I noticed. Too many politicians now have posture, and don't speak truthfully. And maybe we just need to return to that. I don't even care if I don't agree with them, as long as I think they're actually speaking the truth.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of time. I'll let go and forward.
Go and get a cup of tea or something.
Yeah.
Can I get a quick picture of you two together?
Is that all
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Wait a minute. Just one more. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Right, we're going to meet you.
Right. So that was the Let Women Speak event. I think we had some really powerful stories told. Some of them were difficult to hear, but they all need hearing. I mean, this issue is so widespread, and probably more widespread than we've actually been told. Again, I'm really sorry about the technical issues that we had. As I've probably said about 3 times now, it's our first time doing a live stream on our own. We will get better. But other than that, I think there also was some signal issues in the area that we just couldn't do anything about. If you could go over to our Patreon if you haven't already and subscribe. For as little as £3 a month, I believe. It just helps us cover the costs to do our journalism. Without it, we wouldn't be able to be here covering these events, the farmers rally, all of the events. That is what you guys allow us to do, and it's just brilliant. I can't thank our supporters enough. And despite the technical difficulties, I hope you enjoyed watching. We have pre-recorded on the GoPro as well, so those will be coming out. So any video footage that you didn't manage to catch on here, you will be able to catch soon, being released afterwards. But yeah, thank you so much. I've been Emma Dunwell with Resistance GB.
All right, thank you so much.